Hello. Can you think of anything better right now than a warm cookie out of the oven and a nice glass of milk? I can't. I think everybody enjoys warm cookies. If you bake cookies and leave them a few days, they're just not as good as they are when they're fresh out of the oven. So I'm going to be showing you how to make cookies and use them, have fresh cookies for 4 to 5 weeks out of your refrigerator and only one time making a mess. I'm not real thrilled with cleaning up messes. That's not my favorite part of cooking. And so whenever I can condense things, I do. I condense a lot of things. If I'm making cookies or bread or even casseroles, I'll make one and freeze one. Meatloaf, I'll make one and freeze one. And that way I've only cleaning up the mess once and have 2 or 3 meals from it. I'm Jan Plummer, and I'm the author of Cooking Coach. It's a comprehensive book, which I call sometimes home ec teacher in a book, because I was a home ec teacher at Hamilton Heights for 33 years. I graduated from Frankton High School, so I am a local author, and a lot of what is in the book is what I taught. It's 426 pages of information, from kitchen safety to ingredients to measuring to equipment to if you're going to have a party for 25 people, how much potato salad should you buy, and then hundreds of recipes. And so what I'm going to show you today is how to mix up some cookie dough and then use it fresh for 4 to 5 weeks. If you're not going to use it up in that amount of time, you might want to freeze part of it, but it's easy for us to do this. What I normally will do is I will quadruple a cookie recipe, and then I will divide it and add different things to it. You don't have to serve the same cookie for 4 to 5 weeks. You can use your imagination, and you're only limited to your imagination to make whatever kind of cookies you like and your family likes. What I have done here is I've made 2 different types of cookies. I have made a chocolate chip type cookie dough, and then I have made an oatmeal type cookie dough, and then you can add whatever. I have, here's the chocolate chip cookies. To this one I have added sprinkles. I've added just colored sugar and cinnamon. I even added cocoa to make a chocolate cookie. And then you could add anything here. I generally do just chocolate chips and nuts, because that's what we like. But I also have the plain here. You could even add just food coloring and make a green cookie or a pink cookie. You can add M&Ms. There's Reese Pieces, Heath chunks, cinnamon chips, chocolate chips, sprinkles, whatever your imagination and likes give you, then that's what you do. For the oatmeal cookies, we've got cranberries, raisins, nuts. These are the basic oatmeal cookies. This one, my husband loves cinnamon, so whenever a recipe calls for cinnamon, I always add more. So you can see the difference in the color simply by the amount of cinnamon that I added. And then I have a few that I added raisins and nuts to. Some basic information on mixing up cookies. If you've not cooked very much, you want to make sure you follow the recipe exactly, because the way the cookie turns out is the proportion of flour to sugar to fat. And if you get those proportions off, then it can cause your cookies not to turn out the way you would want. Once you get down to, you understand what those things do, then you can sometimes make a few adjustments. But when you go to add your extras, your chips and your nuts and things like that, you don't have to necessarily measure exactly, because that's not going to affect the cookie itself. The only thing I used to tell my students was, don't put so many chips in a cookie that there's not enough dough to hold it together, because you've got to have enough dough there or your cookies are going to fall apart and crumble. When you're making the cookies, then most cookie recipes don't call for you to grease the cookie sheet anymore. But if you do get one that does tell you to grease it, you don't have to use a lot of grease. Don't over grease it or they're going to be too dark on the bottom. So I suggest you take a paper towel, put some shortening on it, spread it over the cookie sheet, then get another paper towel and wipe it all off. And that will leave enough grease to keep your cookies from sticking, but won't make them too dark on the bottom. Then another thing, you want to make sure that when you're putting the cookie dough on the cookie sheet, you use about the same amount of cookie dough for each cookie, so that they will bake evenly. If you have a small amount for one cookie and a large amount for another cookie, the small ones are going to burn before the large ones get done. So I like to use the cookie scoops. And you can get all different sizes, and depending on what size you use will determine how many cookies you can put on that cookie sheet. If you're using the small one, then obviously you can get more cookies on a cookie sheet, because they should be like 1 inch to 1.5 inches apart, so that when they spread they won't run into each other. If you're using the ice cream scoop for your cookies, then you probably maybe a maximum of 5 on a cookie sheet, because they'll make a cookie about this big. And so if that's what you're going to do, you can't put as many on the cookie sheet. Also, I like to use a metal spatula to take the cookies off the sheet, because I think it gets up under them better than a plastic one. That's my opinion. And if you do get something stuck, instead of trying to dig it out this way, I think it comes off easier if you turn the spatula over. So just a couple little tips. Oh, the other thing I want to tell you is when you're baking in the oven, it's easy to want to put 2 cookie sheets in at a time, 1 on each rack, but it's better if you do 1 sheet at a time, because the heat is going to get around the cookie and evenly brown them top and bottom. If you have 2 cookie sheets on top of each other, then the top ones here are going to get browned and the bottom ones here are going to get brown, because the heat can't get in between to brown them evenly. So just think about that. Now, if it's for your family at home, then that's not going to be a big deal if they're not all the same color. If you're going to be taking them someplace where you want them to look nicer, then you might want to do it just one sheet at a time. The other thing, when you get your dough mixed up, do put it in an airtight container. And as I said, if you're not going to use it all in 4 or 5 weeks, put some of it in the freezer. If you have time, you might also want to go ahead and roll it in the balls and stick it in here, and then put wax paper between the layers. And that way, then all you'll have to do is take the balls out of the container, put it on the cookie sheet, and bake them. And so it makes it real easy. The other thing is, when you put your add-ons in, you might want to do that when you're mixing it up, because after they're in the refrigerator, they will harden up just a little bit because of the fat hardening, and it will be a little harder to mix them in. So I hope that this will help you be able to enjoy fresh baked cookies without a lot of work, and have fun. Sit down, have a nice glass of milk and a warm cookie, and enjoy. Thanks.